Welcome to the Oklahoma Real Estate Show with Landon Witt. You are about to learn hyper-local market knowledge happening right now in the Oklahoma real estate market. This is your fresh report on housing conditions that will enable you to make smarter investment decisions and gain insight on local trends. Plan your next move in real estate with this fast, vital market news to aid your next real estate adventure. Landon is a genuine, self-made top realtor in Oklahoma City with millions of dollars in real estate closed every year and hundreds of satisfied clients. He's top rated by sites like Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, and Homes.com. He's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, property manager, and residential broker who's worked with clients from all over the globe to help achieve their real estate goals. Whether you live right here in the city or across the country, welcome to the Oklahoma Real Estate Show. Here is your host, Landon Witt.
Welcome to episode 150 of the Oklahoma Real Estate Show. I'm Landon Witt. I have been a real estate broker and real estate guru, if you will, since 2016. I was licensed in 2015, and since I have sold hundreds and hundreds of homes, and now I manage over $35 million in inventory here in central Oklahoma. Want to bring this year to a close with a market snapshot review this year. Kind of going back to where I originally started this show, which was more data-focused numbers on this episode to kind of give you a no BS snapshot of where we are and where we might be going here as 2026 approaches. The market snapshot for central Oklahoma, we want to start with that population growth. Great metric to watch for overall investing in Oklahoma, or really anywhere, is the population increasing, therefore increasing the demand? So in 2024, right, we went up 0.9%, just less than 1%, which resulted in about 13,000 new residents. In 2025, this year, we're looking to end at about 1.2% increase, which is 17,000 new residents, going the right direction. And a large portion of that was from the job growth, which if you look at 2024 was 1.5% increase, but 2025, we're looking at 2.1%, with the strongest sectors coming in at healthcare, aerospace, logistics, and kind of energy. Now, healthcare being, I think, the lion's share. You looked at Integris there on Expressway and kind of I-44 did this huge expansion, brought a lot more capabilities for that hospital. I think it went to the next trauma rating or whatever up, which brings a different level of care and doctors and all the support staff. So healthcare has always been a real good driver, especially in the Midwest. Your unemployment rate actually went down. So we had a 3.3% unemployment in 2024. 2025, we run into a 3.1% unemployment rate. Your housing supply, this is where we get into action. So 2024, we had roughly 1.9 months supply of inventory. Again, that means if no new homes went on the market, the current consumption rate would take 1.9 months to have nothing on the market. Now we're ending 2025 at 2.4 months supply of inventory. Regional inflation, okay, let's talk about that for just a minute. 2024 averaged at 5.2%, whereas 2025 we're now down to 3.4%, which is actually less than some of the money market accounts that are here in town. So we're now seeing a positive gain if you've got just a local money market account here. Your affordability index, which is great to see. So 2024, we were 27% cheaper than Dallas and Austin, kind of our two bigger metroplexes that are within, let's say, a 6-hour drive, Dallas being 4-hour drive or less. We're now 25 to 30% cheaper than they are, which has always really been a driver for Oklahoma City, right? They move here for affordability, right? We don't have mountains. We don't have an ocean. We don't have, it's flat. It's flat land. a lot of wind, and not a whole lot of nature going on here. So the real driver has always been affordability. If you're going to start a business, you can do it pretty easily here just because the barrier to entry of affordability is that much lower. And we're even pushing it further with a 3% increase over Dallas now from last year. So we're 30% cheaper on average to live here than Dallas, which is a wonderful sales pitch, because it's always been the sales pitch as long as I've been in real estate here over a decade, that it's more affordable than the bigger cities around. So we're even pushing that margin further. So watch that one. That's going to be great. Your net migration has been positive for 6 years now. So from 2024, it was 6 years. 2025 is 7 years. So 7 years of positive migration. So that's a great number to see, that for a long period of time, we're still steadily increasing. Now, as far as your closed sales, let's talk about that for a minute. I know I'm rambling this stuff off, but it's important to kind of hear where each category is. So as you're sitting there, you're listening, the closed sales for 2024 was down 2.1%. In 2025, they were down even more, 4.3% year over year. Again, the leading cause of that is access to mortgages. Mortgages are harder to get right now. They're more expensive, right? So not only do you have more requirements on the buyer to get a mortgage, the mortgage is more expensive. So even if no new requirements were there, you would still need more income to qualify for the same exact house as before. So the new listings in 2024 were up 4%. Now they're up 6.1% year over year. Your median sales price in 2024 was $270, but has gone up 3.3% to $279. So one could say the inflation is about that 3.5%. So maybe they kind of stagnated and stayed the same. But at $280,000, you look at that average mortgage, and it's much higher than it's ever been. I think that, again, is a leading cause of why inventory is up 6.1 and sellers not super motivated. So that's leading to your price per square foot going moderately up from $254 per square foot to $158, closing out 2025. Average days on market was 26 days in 2024. We're wrapping 2025 up at 33 days on the market. So for a correctly priced home, you're still only looking at like 2 mortgage payments that you're going to have to keep paying as the property gets on the market. Now, of course, if you got it rented, those are different metrics. Selling a property that's already rented kind of has a different spice to it, right? Different clientele typically, and you still got rent coming in the whole time you're listed. Now, your listing to sale ratio from 2024 to 2025, we look at 98.6% of all properties listed actually sold. 2025, we're down to 97.6. Now, that doesn't show on price reduction, but that just says you have a 97.6% chance of selling your home once you put it on the market, which is still fantastic if you think about it. Interest rates in 2024 ranged between 6.1 to 7.3. Our range in 2025 is 6.5 to 7.8. All the narrative, all the hustle and bustle in the national news under federal moves hasn't moved that average mortgage here in Oklahoma. We're still looking at that elevated above 6s, which really is difficult at the current pricing, right? You look at the income from the job averages to the actual price of the mortgage, and it's a stretch. It really is. So the buyer payment impact was up 7% in 2024. It's now up 9% in 2025 due to these rates. So buyer payment impact, that shock feeling year over year, comes in at, again, that 9%. Now, the most competitive price tier, it's been this way for a while, sub 250, right? Anything under the 250 price point, you are going to have the most competition and demand for, right? So you've got a lot of this pushing and turning. So under sub 250 was those spec builders. Those also compete with those smaller square foot homes in the smaller neighborhoods. And again, it's about that monthly payment. So you're going to have kind of some cutting in pricing and a lot of kind of saturation in that price point. Now, 2025 softness started in 300 to 450K range. That, I would say, if I just had to guess, builders like Home Creation, Tabor, Ideal Homes, D.R. Horton, some of their premium product was coming off the shelf in that 300 to 450 range. Those were between 1,400 to 1,800 square foot homes. This is the price point it took to get you into those quality build homes with the low energy efficient rating and all that. And it used to be that the more expensive home was worth the payment because your utility costs were that much less. Now with the interest, that argument doesn't quite work. New construction volume reflects in that. You've got a 7% increase in 2024 year over year, and 2025, 11% increase year over year. And that's again because those permits and that process is like 3 years old. So they're starting 3 years ago, finally getting to market. So we're still up 11% year over year for new construction volume, trying to meet again that 17,000 person population increase. But the average builder incentives, here's the cool part for you as a buyer. In 2024, we were looking at $6,200. In 2025, we're now $8,500 in builder incentives. That's largely being spent on the rate buy downs. And that's the wisest decision to make, because you can buy $8,500 for a builder could be like half a fence, right? Whereas buying down that rate could really, really help you even in the short term, because most of your interest on a mortgage is up front, right? It's those first couple years they're getting the most interest paid back. So your building permits in 2024 was 7,300. Your building permits in 2025 was 7,100, modest reduction. Metro occupancy is up, so 92.1% up to 93.2%. Those homes that were considered vacant and sitting and boarded up, blah, 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 have now gone the right direction to being used. So that's wonderful to see. Still have, 7% of the inventory sitting either boarded up or unusable. And one could argue that number is not even really that accurate, because some of them get they're derelict, but not really in that figure. So that's a whole separate podcast. The average rent growth, let's talk about that. That's an important element. That's primarily what I spend my days on, is generating rent. I think right now I'm collecting about $185,000 in rent per month. That comes out to that net operating income, where the net value is about $35 million in inventory. And that's kind of how I'm rating the portfolio, is how much rent am I collecting per month. And that shows kind of what my business is doing as far as portfolio value. So anyways, the average rent growth went up year over year, 2.4%. Okay. Generally, nationally, we see a 3% kind of ceiling on rent price increase year over year. So we have done a pretty good job of floating between that 1.5% to 3%. Again, depending on the property, right? We're looking in and seeing, what has gone on around the property. Are rent prices going down, right? Is there a better deal across the street? You might be a little bit more conservative on that rent increase for that person, because they might be wanting to shop after they see your rent is going up. Meanwhile, everybody else around you might be adjusting. But on average, it's not. It's going up 2.5%. So you can expect the rent to go up. Now, remember, inflation's still in the 3s. So rent increase not keeping up with inflation. And this is where you really got to pay attention to reducing your cost in other categories, repairs, renovations here, cutting those costs in these little bitty corners can give you that advantage over your competitor, which is the other investors that may not be focused on the little nitty gritty. And over time, they just get eaten alive by those extra costs. And then you're in a position to say, let me buy their property, right? And that's what I want to do for you as an investor, is put you in a position where you are a healthy cash flowing business, whereas maybe someone else is not. Over time, you then are in a position to be able to acquire their investment. Okay, your one bedroom breakout it was $849 in 2024. Now it's $865 in 2025. That's across the board, $865. Your two bedroom is now renting on average for $1,045. Your three bedroom now still up, $1,635 for that average three bedroom. Your rent concessions, they are on the decline. In 2024, we were given about 12 to 15% in rent concessions. This can be anything from 1 month's free rent. It can be a reduced security deposit. It can be an upgrade. Relative to the annual rent, you're looking at other investors or other firms, and most of this concession figure comes from multifamily housing, big multifamily housing that does their quarterly reports to HUD. This 12 to 15% in 2024 is now 8 to 12%, so down in rent concessions for 2025. And that could just be, hey, I didn't get any increase in my rent, my job income, or maybe my job is unstable. The last thing I want to do is reapply for a new apartment, right? So I'm going to stay put. And that's where your concessions come into play, where there's just not a lot of movement, right? That can make it decrease too. So eviction filings, though, here's the other side. And we've experienced some of this as well. 2024, it was up 5%. In 2025, we're finishing out this year with evictions at 7.9%. That means out of 100 renters, roughly 8 are going to be evicted this year, or were evicted this year. That's one of the highest numbers on record. Obviously, take out COVID, the eviction moratoriums and all that. And the large reason I think that this has to do with is you had a really increased amount of, cost of rent. Everything kept kind of skyrocketing up, and you saw that existing properties were actually rented more higher than other properties were. And I believe it starts to create this sentiment of discussion between that person and maybe their coworkers on how much is your rent. Maybe their rent's less than theirs, and you get this bitter attitude. So don't be afraid earlier on, when you notice someone struggling in your rental portfolio, to have discussions with them regarding their finances. If someone's late, making that time on that phone call to figure out why they're late, and maybe it's worth it to already start adjusting the rent price downward to give them that offset that's needed to keep them stable. If your price to renovate and refresh and time off market's going to be big. And in a lot of cases, we're seeing 2 to 3 weeks on market, and several $1,000s getting the units back, painting, all that. Even if you have a great cheap painter, paint costs are expensive now. Now, insurance premiums, that's the other side we can't really control much of. But you're looking in 2024, it was up 9 to 12%. In 2025, up 12 to 22%. 12 to 22%. That's the insurance companies adjusting their rate because of the storms. They said, the hurricanes, Now, if you look, though, at the statistics, it was a very low year for storms. In fact, Home Depot, I saw the CEO was releasing during their last quarterly statement that their income projections are down because there wasn't a lot of storms this year, was the leading factor in that. So not a lot of storms. You would think next year might at least be minimal increases in insurance premiums, because when they're not paying these massive storm outputs, they've got some more money, right? Also, insurance premiums, remember, they make a lot of their money off their annuities, their investments, and those investments in a lot of categories, the pensions and whatnot, have reduced their income back. And so they got to make it somewhere, and that's going to come from those premiums. Also, another thing before I go on, fire risk is up. Fire risk in properties and a lot of what we're doing at OKCREAL is we're playing, on the apartment complexes that we have, either the megaphones or we've got door postings or text systems. We are giving educational material on how to avoid fires, right? Fires. Every time I get a little push notification on my phone that another apartment's on fire, I'm looking for a second, is it one of ours? And then learning from what happened, right? And a lot of what I see is common mistakes like using your oven for a heat source. So we're already preempting that by educating residents, saying, don't use your heater or your oven as a heat source, or whatever else you're doing. Feel comfortable reaching out to us and then repeating that message over and over again. When they pay their rent, there's a little banner that says, don't use your space heater within 3 feet of a blanket or 3 feet of anything, right? Don't use your oven. So we have been able to reduce our risk in this category. Now, does the insurance company notice that? No. They're national, but we definitely aren't dealing with the fires. So that's the great thing. Now, maintenance labor inflation, you're looking at it was up 4 to 6% in 2024. It's now up 6 to 9% in 2025. Okay. Important thing to look at. I would say the leading factor in this is drug use increase. And I know that sounds bad, but maintenance techs, right, are like one of those prime categories that are really susceptible to alcohol and drug abuse. Okay. Hate to say that, but when you get pulled over for drinking and driving or whatever, as a maintenance tech, especially in the single home world where you have to drive to service calls, you now get taken out of that. Great example. We had a plumber that was part of our subcontractors. Their general contractor was tired of the drug abuse. They had dragged him along for many years. They ended up letting him go. Well, the problem was he was really good at diagnosing stuff, and he was really cheap on labor. So our plumbing cost for that vendor was pretty muted, and we were getting great deals. Months later now, after he got let go for his drug habit, we are now seeing cost with that vendor skyrocketing, right? And the reason why is because now you have less techs, or the tech that still stayed, right? He's now higher demand. He has more jobs he has to go to. Therefore, to keep him motivated, you got to increase that hourly rate, right? And so that's, I think, the predominant factor. So you want to get labor costs down, you have to develop a way to either restore people that have drug addiction, or figure out a way to come along and open the amount of labor you can use, or educate the ones that are there and help them stay focused. And that's what we've done at OKCREAL, is really keeping good relationships with these local vendors and our subs to just say, guys, reach out to us if you need some help. Let's talk about these issues, right? Because the savings for having a tech that maybe has a little bit of a history, right? Little bit of stuff going on, right? Is exponentially cheaper than the experienced tech that's done everything right, that wants to run his own company, right? That's so much higher. And yes, and we have those people, and we want to inspire those people to keep doing it. But when you look at the math, yes, they break equipment. Yes, there's stuff that goes wrong. But in the long run, it's still cheaper a lot of times, because the hourly labor and the amount that it costs is just so much higher. So anyways, that's a whole different podcast. Our turnover cost in total for an average turnover, this is not a make-ready, this is not like an advanced make-ready. This is a Class C, get the thing ready to rent again, right? Not a remodel. We're looking in 2024, we were running about $680 for those Class Cs. 2025, we're now up to $725, and I can guarantee you that is linked to cost of material. We are watching our Home Depot and our Lowe's, which is predominantly where we're buying materials. They're going up, right? The prices are still going up on this inventory stuff. Even though Home Depot's overall net output is down, it's going up for us, largely because there's not a lot of renovation, do-it-yourselfers going on right now. So we're still buying in a limited environment, and they got to increase the cost. So turnover costs for your Class Bs and above, we really don't have some figures for Class A's per se because it can be very all over the place. But Class B in 2024, we were running about $1,280 again for getting a house ready to rent and get it back on the market. 2025, we're up to $1,350. Our voucher demand, okay, this is the demand, the wait list for Section 8 vouchers. 2024 was, in 2025, it's still stable around that 10% more increase every year. So, interesting thing though, the numbers haven't really hit, but Trump's initiatives have already, even though they're not even in law. They're not in law yet. He has mentioned through the crime and disorder filings that he's done, the executive orders to try to incentivize local governments to basically only give vouchers to individuals that have a promising future. For example, housing first initiatives. So if you're homeless and they want to pull you off the street and put you in housing, that's called housing first. In other words, let's get you a house before we start any other rehab. If that program doesn't require rehab, Trump is wanting to defund federal regulation. It hasn't happened yet, but it has influenced the way the local housing authorities are issuing new vouchers, and that's already begun. So a 10% increase probably will go up even more as less vouchers get issued. So we're already diversifying away from vouchers anywhere we can. And that's not saying we don't accept vouchers. It just means we are looking at a voucher as what we used to look at it, where it was just a subsidy of the income only, which means you still have to have the credit score. You still have to have the income, proof of income for your tenant paid portion. All that's still in play, whereas there was a period of sauciness where some properties and some investment portfolios, if you had a voucher, we were just taking the government checks no matter who the person was, right? So that we're moving away from that considerably into 2026, 2027. Your investor market cap rates, and this is pretty much it where we're going to, we got one more sheet left here, guys. Hang in here. I'm going to publish my notes on the description so you guys can rip through these. I know a lot of you guys are busy, but this is important stuff, I feel. So your rental investor market recap, the cap rates for Class A's in 2024 was between 5 and 5.5. We're now looking at between 5.25 to 6%, right? A 0.5% increase on the cap rate for Class A's, predominantly because of the lockout effect from new mortgages, right? You have more people that normally would have bought that didn't buy but still want a nice house moving into that Class A rental market, pushing that demand up. Same thing occurring in the Class B as Class A's get pushed out and more demand. A lot of the Class A's, again, are moving down to Class B. That went from 5.8 to 6.5 range in 2024 to now that top end being at 6.75. Class C cap rate. Now, remember, cap rates on Class C are always high, but we're seeing the same increase, that 0.75% increase. We're now at 8.75% cap rate. Finishing out 2025, it's between that 7.5 to 8.75% average cap rate for Class C and below properties. Your operating expense inflation for 2024 to 2025, it's now up another 2%. So year over year, 8.3% increase in operating expense for investors across the board. I will tell you, ours is not there. Not there. Again, because we are doing unique things in the labor market by giving a lot more people opportunity to get those labor costs down, right? People will trade, people that are interested, right, are in demand for labor. For example, you lost your housing voucher, you lost your food stamps, you were a maintenance tech at one point, or you had capability of doing make ready, you're now open again, and we're tapping into that new demand, right? And then providing that training or buddying them up with an existing handyman that we've had that can kind of bring them underneath their wing and believes that this person, if we don't believe people can get better, it's a bad world, right? So we have to believe that people can get better. Out-of-state investors are still up year over year. More investors from out-of-state are investing in Oklahoma City. We're up 37%. 37% of investors are out of state. It was 32, so we're up, 6%, 5% from year over year to out of state investors. So more investors were out of state in 2025 than in 2024. Your value add return on investment, this is for like a lot of your burr people, but basically, you're on the rent side, you're getting in 2024, you were getting between $40 and $85 a month. This 2025, we're looking at that $55 to $100 more a month. And again, that's in those Class A, maybe B pluses, where you've got that increased demand from mortgage lockout, where they're now coming into the rental market with picky choosy. And a lot of this stuff we can do on the fly. For example, you don't like this about the property you just toured? You want new granite countertops? Let's talk about what your payment could look like with those new granite countertops, ma'am. Apply now. Let's see if we can get you those granite countertops at your lease closing. Outside the box, right? Average value add cost per door. In 2024, this is that increasing, kind of renovation. We're looking at between $2,800 and $4,300 in 2024. It's now up in 2025, and I believe this 100%, between $3,200 to $5,800 to update a unit or just do some value adds across the board for your cost per door. That really matters. I'm doing one right now that 5,000 is about right. And we're not even going that fancy. We're talking repainting cabinets, repainting interior, upgrading the flooring throughout the units, hardware, doors, fixtures, appliances is still expensive. Golly, you just apply even the cheapest appliances you have, they're still very expensive. They hadn't figured out how to get that cost down. So you're looking at that $5,000 mark. Economic indicators. In 2024, we were expecting the rate cuts. They didn't occur. In 2025, basically the expectations were we just wanted stabilization. That's all we were really going for. And we did see that on the inflation. Your median household income in 2024 was $62,800. In 25, we're now looking at that $64,000 for your median house income in Central Oklahoma. Your material cost inflation, again, we could go through all these figures, but we actually saw a huge decrease in material cost inflations. Was 7 to 10% in 2024. Now we're looking at just 3 to 5% material increase. Closing this out though, our internal metrics for 2024 versus 2025, we're looking at we went from 82% to 88% portfolio occupancy. We had some acquisitions with some really rough outlooks that we ended up beefing up. Now we're at between 80 and 90% occupancy across the board. And I would argue those numbers aren't even correct, because some of those multifamily housing projects we took on, we literally had 20, 30 units vacant that are now 100% occupied, right? Which is a feat in and of itself, because when let's say a 50 unit is that far down, right? You got homeless that move in, you got vagrants that move in, you have a culture that develops around that area, your little miniature neighborhood, and you got to change all that. And we were able to do that in some amazing ways and get those now. We're at 100% occupancy and cash flow looking good. So we're well over 90%. I want to say our figures, if we released them right now, and we can do this in the January episodes, we're well above 95%. Our economic outlook for 2026, our expected growth is between 2 to 4%. Okay. We're still looking at upward. Our expected price appreciation between 2 to 5%. Our cap rates may widen between those Class C's and that Class A, and that's again because of that mortgage lockout thing. It doesn't really affect that Class C other than people from B coming downwards. Evictions are still likely to be elevated. We're doing a lot more education, a lot more articles, a lot more talk, working a lot with Catholic charities, a lot of the Native American tribes. We have relationships established with them, W-9s on file where they can send us checks and that we're already on file. So if they know one of our people is in one of their people is, comes to them, we're already in their system, so it's very simple for them to help them with rental assistance, right? That all those things play out, right? You have a person on a computer that's trying to help people, and some people are much harder to help, some people are easier to help. Naturally, those people that are efficiently easy to help get them more help, and that's how we've been able to keep our eviction numbers down. The strongest demand segment for our 2026, in closing, is going to be the 3-bedroom single-family rentals. We literally have wait lists for our 3-bedroom single-family rentals right now. I think we have 61 right now as of this recording, December, and those rent, right? And once people rent them, they stay, right? Your most likely value add opportunity in 2026 is going to be your older Class C assets with outdated systems. That's still, again, trying to push the Class C up into that B, because, again, 2026 is going to still see a tenacious rent demand. So, again, this is Landon Witt with episode 150. If you've got questions about your portfolio, if you're not happy with what you're seeing, or maybe you just want to see what the other side may be like, feel free to shoot me an email at landon@okcreal.com. Again, that's LANDON @okcreal.com, or visit us online at okcreal.com/investors. You can schedule a portfolio assessment with yours truly. That's a 15-minute to 30-minute talk where we can jump on a Zoom call together or a Google Meet and talk about what your portfolio is doing, see if we can do a value add with our system. So anyways, thanks for watching the show, and I will see you next time on episode 151. For more information or to get started with your home, visit OklahomaRealEstateShow.com.